Andrew McCART, IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. And I've got to say, I'm delighted as always to be joined by my good friend Adam Catterall, the UFC, boxing, just a whole round fight game guru himself. How are you, Adam?
I'm good, mate. Can you just let everybody know before we get stuck into this conversation that I'm sure that there's many people that you speak to on IFL TV that come with terms and conditions that come along with the interviews that they grant your fantastic channel. The only terms and conditions that I had, mate, was that we made this a 2-box, that people could see your beautiful face while we have this conversation. You see, they need to see the Mitchell brothers talking about fight sports. That's what it is.
You're Phil, I'm Grant.
You're the harder one. You're the one that can do a bit.
Yeah, Adam, the reason I wanted to get you on this is obviously, you know, I like your work and what you do with in the UFC side of things, and obviously the boxing side of things. You've got your head in the game and you're very, very knowledgeable. So obviously with the Tyson Fury and Ngannou, which I'm going to come on to, but they are sort of back and forth, UFC, boxing. There's probably no better guy to talk to about the two worlds amalgamating together. So, but I do want to get your thoughts on 2021 and the boxing, the UFC. What your hopes and dreams for 2022 in terms of the fights you want to see in 2022. Then we'll talk about the Francis Tyson Fury and Ngannou stuff and Probellum, with your work for Probellum, because I know you've done 2 shows at the tail end of last year. And just your thoughts of covering fights ringside and doing the commentary and all that sort of palaver. And you seem to be enjoying it. So, let's just kick it off, man. 2021, crazy year in terms of the pandemic and whatnot. But for you and myself, like we still got to travel the world and witness some of the best shows, the best boxing matches the fight game has had to offer. But for you, what stands out most for you in 2021 in terms of the fights you were at?
Wow, man. Okay, I'll come at this first then from a UFC point of view, and then I'll merge this into boxing, because I think boxing had a more successful back end of 2021 than it did front end, and I'm sure fans would agree with that. Obviously, 2021 with the UFC started on Abu Dhabi. I mean, they've been quite fortunate when this pandemic hit. They've got this partnership with Abu Dhabi, which allowed them to set up the aptly named Fight Island, and they had 3 or 4 trips out there in 2020, and they started 2021 there, obviously, with the Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier second match wasn't it, in January out there. So it all kicked off there, mate. So obviously you can't wish for a better start to the year. You're praying that the pandemic's going to go away. You're praying that everything's going to get back to normal. And when the UFC are obviously being able to maintain the level of matchmaking that they've been able to maintain and start with, I know people are going to argue with me about this, he still is the premier star. If you look at the pay-per-view buys last year, even in 2 losses, Conor McGregor's still the guy, and still the guy by quite some distance in the UFC. So when you start with your premier star in January, you kind of set yourself up for quite a solid year. And if you look throughout the course of the 12-month period, even though the business kind of took a little bit of a deviation, yes, they got back in front of fans, but they only got back in front of fans for the big pay-per-view events. They didn't come to London, which is obviously kicking the balls for us here. They didn't, as they normally do, go around the world bringing the show. They did go to Abu Dhabi a couple of times, but it was mainly based out in Las Vegas. And if you actually look at the level of matchmaking that they're still able to maintain, even though there were problems with unvaccinated fighters, there were different jurisdictions for being able to get in and out of Vegas and what have you, with teams and stuff. I think the UFC had an absolutely fantastic year from a competition point of view. I mean, they crowned 9 new UFC world champions last year, 2 of which were interim champions, but 9 new champions, 7 first timers. Some of the narratives that went along with that, we had the first Mexican champion in Brandon Moreno. You've obviously got Charles Oliveira, who everybody knows, like, his first 18 fights in the UFC, he was 10-8. That's 10 wins, 8 losses. And then he's just gone on this mad run where he's done 10 on the spin, and now he's the lightweight champion, obviously taking Khabib's old title. You got Glover Teixeira, who's the oldest first-time world champion at 40. I think he was 41 years of age. Mad stuff, loads of mad stuff. And obviously you got the Francis Ngannou story, which we'll talk about later on, obviously, with this now, him going back and forth with Tyson Fury. So his story in itself is absolutely crazy. So it sets us up for a good 2022. So the UFC never missed a beat when it came to matchmaking, even though the majority of it was consumed at home for a lot of people sat on the sofas at home. They never missed a beat regarding the entertainment factor. And that's the key thing in all fight sports, isn't it? You've got to give the fans the matches, even if it's not the big title fights, even the competitor, the eliminator fights, the prospects that are coming through. They've got to be evenly matched. There's got to be something in it for the fan. And I think that's what they managed to do throughout the whole course of the 12 months. From a boxing point of view, I thought it was a slow start. Actually, yeah, we did all right, didn't we? We got Ryan Garcia and Luke Campbell really early doors, and we thought, right, we're on here. This could be brilliant because the lightweight division, everybody was talking about it at that time. This could be the year where we get to see all those young lads having a bit of a go at each other. It didn't materialize, sadly. And I just thought, obviously, with the pandemic and travel and stuff like that, we struggled for a good 4 or 5 months, and then all of a sudden it just went boom, man. It went boom, and the best fights started to happen. I mean, the best stat that you can give for boxing, and people will always throw shade. If you're a fan of boxing and a fan of MMA, you'll always throw shade at boxing because you're so used to matches being made in MMA, and you'll say, why can't it happen in boxing? Well, it's just two different sports, man. They just run differently. That's just the way it is. But boxing got better last year. If you look at the period between 2004 to 2020, the 4-belt era, let's say, when it started in 2004, we got 4 undisputed title fights, mate, in that 16-year period. That's bollocks, isn't it? Let's be straight. That's absolute nonsense. That should never be happening. Whereas last year alone, official undisputed fights, we got 3. We got the draw, obviously, between Charlo and Castaño, and then we obviously got Canelo doing his thing. And you've got Josh Taylor doing his thing as well, but then you could class as an unofficial undisputed title fight with Teofimo Lopez. So it's going in the right direction. And as I look ahead to 2022 now, mate, I'm thinking to myself, if boxing doesn't deliver 4 or 5 even undisputed title fights in the male divisions, I think we'll have failed because we're going in the right way. It's all going in the right direction. And every fan wants it, don't we? We want less belts. We want one champion per division. That's what we all want.
Yeah.
And I think boxing finished the year really, really strongly, mate. And I think it was it's the epitome of the year. When I think back to 2021, I'm always going to think of Canelo and his attitude of what he did. He entered all right, this is in December, back end of the year previous, but he entered a division and he targeted all the champions that were undefeated. And yeah, all right, he's the cash cow. Yeah, there's a lot of money behind him, and he's got a lot more pull and power to be able to do these types of things. He even took care of an absolute nonsense mandatory in the middle of it. And he just he kind of set a marker down to every other champion to say, if you want to be the best, if you want to be regarded as the main guy, you can do it. This is the attitude that you've got to show, though. You've got to be the driver of that. And hopefully a lot of people saw that, and we start to see it coming into this year, mate.
I think so. Like I was going to say, when you were talking there, I was going to sort of jump in with a question. Can we thank Canelo for that? Because he's hell-bound to get all these belts in that middleweight division. He actually, obviously, it was well noted on social media how good a friend he is with Eddie Hearn and how much he likes Eddie. But he actually said to Eddie, listen, I'm going to go over to PBC there to get Caleb Plant. He's actually willing to do business with other promoters to get his way. And you mentioned he is the cash cow. He does have a lot of pull and power.
Yeah.
And other fighters don't have that. But like you said, it is going in the right direction. With Josh holding all the belts, you could say Kambosos is holding all the belts, but Devin Haney is maybe getting that fight in 2022. But boxing is going the right way in terms of the fights as well. We've seen some great fights in Wilder, Fury Wilder 3, Josh Taylor Ramirez, Estrada Chocolatito, Taylor Ramirez as well. Do you know what I mean? And even Metcalf and Cheeseman was one of the fights that actually stood out for me. So boxing, in terms of giving the fans what they want to see in pure product, in the 50-50 fights in all action, and we had it in 2021, I believe. And I think it's, like you said, it's going up. It's on the up.
Do you know something? What I've just been saying there about the back end of the year being stronger than the first part of the year, I stand by it, but you just reminded me of a fight, which then reminded me of another fight. Obviously, Chocolatito and Estrada was earlier on in the year. And then you've got the Valdez and Bichelt fight, which I thought was absolutely sensational as well. And that was at the start of the year. And okay, maybe I'm coming at this from a British fan's point of view who's used to going to the arenas constantly, not only on British soil, but being lucky enough to go around the world and watch all this stuff. And I was just restricted to be able to consume it all at home. Whereas the back end of the year for me then got going a little bit, and we got back in the arenas, didn't we? And we got to see a lot of things, mate. You're 100% right, pal. I think Canelo's attitude is kind of, and fans, you know what I mean? Fans do have a voice. Fans have been making this noise for the last couple of years now, saying it's not good enough. The matchmaking's not good enough. We want to see the best against the best. Stop talking the talk. Start walking the walk, man. Yeah. There's too much fresh air and hot air going on in the sport, isn't there? And I think, even obviously you're good pals with Josh. Look at Josh's career, right? From start to where he's at right now. We see so many guys, elite amateurs, coming out of Commonwealth Games, Olympic Games, and they're fighting 20 taxi drivers before they do anything. And I'm thinking, what's the point of that? They've had they're elite amateurs. half of them have been in with people like Vasyl Lomachenko and Usyk. Well, come on, man. We don't need 20 Latvian taxi drivers to build a career. 4 or 5 to get used to the professional game, and let's get cracking. You know what I mean? And Josh, if you look at the matchmaking of Josh's career right up to where he's at right now, that's why you're getting performances like you're getting out of him. Because he's had Baranchik down the thing, he's had Postol down the thing early doors in his career in order to be able to get into the state.
Postol was 14th fight, I think it was.
There you go.
Yeah.
And when that come up and the Vasquez and people, when those fights were being made, you want people to be thinking, oof, geez, 14th fight taking that. That's what you're supposed to feel like as a fan. Because when he goes and pulls it off, when he goes and does it, brilliant, mate. And you know something? And contrary to that, because people will come back at me and say, well, what about when it goes wrong? And it does go wrong sometimes. Josh Kelly taking on Avanesian, right? People will come at me and say, too early for Josh Kelly, that. Yeah, but Olympian, right? What's he supposed to do? Take the challenge. Okay, he came up short. I'm now more invested in Josh Kelly's career than I was previously when he was just knocking over dudes that I'd never even heard of. You know what I mean? Now that he's gone in, he dared to be great. He came up short against an elite guy like Avanesian. I'm invested in what Kelly does next now. I want to know, has he got a big set of balls? Is he going to come again? Is he going to knuckle that? You know what I mean? All those questions. And I think fans want more of that. And I think promoters and broadcasters have kind of bought into that from fans on social media because it's a really powerful tool. You can get really personal now with people like Eddie Hearn and Frank and all those type of guys, can't you? And they're listening. And that's showing in the matchmaking, man. I mean, look at the schedules that they're starting to knock out. Now you're thinking, do you know something? That's actually solid schedule that. I'm up for that. There's some decent fights in there, you know? So I think it's the fans, mate. The fans have made the noise and the promoters have listened. And long may that continue.
As long as social media can be sort of like a cesspool of negativity and stuff like that, but social media with the fans, when they get going and they start tweeting the promoter that they want to see this fight and that. So it does have its benefits, that does social media. But like you say, you mentioned 2022 and the fights that are getting made now. I'm looking at Liam Williams and Chris Eubank Jr. You got the Ngannou and Cyril Gain. Forgive me, I forgot his name wrong. I mean, we're kicking in the year off. Josh Taylor against Jack Catterall, a great fight as well. Up here, hopefully we get it in Scotland. Do you know what I mean? If the fans are allowed back in. So, listen, the years, you mentioned 2021, slow start. Do you think boxing's getting a good start this time in 2022?
Yeah, obviously, it was kicking the nuts, wasn't it, with the British Boxing Board of Control just stopping us in January because the momentum was there. We're all gagging. We've come off the back of Christmas and we're all gagging to get straight back in there and start doing the shows and what have you. And okay, we've kind of lost a week because that show that you just talked about there, the Eubank Jr. and Williams show, was in the back end of January. And I think Wales was shut down with fans. That fight doesn't, listen, it's a solid fight, but it don't work without the fans. None of these fights work without the fans. You know, those type of atmospheres just bring something extra. And I'm glad that obviously the fans are going to hopefully be involved in that on February the 5th. I think February, mate, if we break it down from promoter or broadcaster, Sky, man, they pulled the finger out the backside, haven't they? You know, you look at what Sky are doing there with the Boxer Boys and Ben Shalom. You look at the 3 shows that they're delivering in February, and people will say, oh, calm, Brooke, it's 25 years past its sell by date. Yeah, it is. So but it's even. It's even. It's an even fight. Yeah, it's not the best against the best. It's not elite against elite, but it's an even fight, mate. The majority of people I'm speaking to are saying, Kel's got 4 rounds to knock him out. If he doesn't knock him out in 4 rounds, then Amir Khan's going to take over. Yeah, but you're in, aren't you? Come on, man. There's a real possibility that all those possibilities could happen. And then obviously you've got the Battle of Britain at the back end of the year. I think fans have been really invested in Josh's journey to where he's at right now. And it's such a shame that he became undisputed champion behind closed doors in America. I mean, how many would he have taken, man? It'd just been carnage in Vegas, wouldn't it? You know yourself, it'd been absolutely mental.
You were lucky if there was 10 jocks in Vegas for that fight, but I think Josh would have took over.
Mate, there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about that at all. And I just think, listen, I'm not ruling Jack out because he's a very, very solid fighter, but everybody knows that, listen to any of my stuff, you know how highly I rate Josh Taylor. And I just think atmosphere-wise, again, people are thirsty for it. The atmosphere that night is just going to be absolutely tremendous.
2022 then, I mean, what fights do you want to see? What fights are you hoping for? When you're sitting in there, right, with your little pen and your notepad and you're writing down things to ask promoters and Dana White and all these sort of things, what are you asking the promoters? What are you in your head thinking, I want to see that fight?
I'll do boxing first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do boxing first because UFC is slightly easier, just because it's a one-man show and 9 times out of 10, I can sit there and say, these are my dream fights. And they've been made within 4 months in the UFC, which is a mad thing. But boxing, the thing that has annoyed me, and I think is annoying a lot of people, is the conversation between, is this person undisputed or not when there's a franchise belt involved? And it's George Kambosos' thing this year, right? So I think what I'd like to see, even though I don't think it's the best fight in the lightweight division, I just want that quashed. Kambosos hate it. All right. So let's make the fight. And Maurizio, if you watch this, pal, yeah, just chuck that franchise belt in the bin. Nobody needs to see it, son. We don't need any of that nonsense. You're just confusing everybody. Let's have, when someone beats the guy that was the guy, they become the undisputed champion. All right. That's what we want. So I think just from a dispute of undisputed, Kambosos Haney is a fight that I think needs to happen this year, even though personally for me, Kambosos Lomachenko's the fight, mate. That's the one in it. Loma's the boy. So if Kambosos wants to prove that he's the main man at 135, that's your guy that you got to dance with. And hopefully, listen, Kambosos has got a fantastic attitude. If he can come through a Haney fight, I would think he would do Lomachenko next. I don't know whether that would be the same the other way around, right, if Haney comes through. But, you know, I'd like to be less dispute about that undisputed situation at lightweight. The big ones, man. Fury, Usyk, I don't care about semi-finals. I'm not interested. I know who the number 1 and number 2 heavyweight guys are. I know who they are. I don't need to see rematches that, whatever. I want to see Tyson Fury take on Alexander Usyk. Again, another undisputed fight. That's what all the fans want to see. They want to see one face at the top of the heavyweight division. And off the back of that, everything will trickle down nicely. I've written some more down for you, Sunshine. Obviously, you got Crawford Spence. Everybody needs to see that, don't they? Whether we will, whether we won't. I mean, they're all chatting nonsense every now and again. But there's another person, Terence Crawford, who has kind of looked at maybe the Canelo model of being not assigned with a promoter and not assigned with a broadcaster, maybe trusts his ability. Okay, he's not as flamboyant and charismatic as Canelo is at this moment in time, but maybe that'll work in his favor when it comes to making fights. Fingers crossed it does, mate. On Canelo, I'm thirsty for Beterbiev. I just want to know if he can. You know what I mean? I just want to know if he can.
He was going to go up to cruiser, so why not?
Yeah, exactly, man. Why not? One fight that's being heavily talked about right now, and I think it will get made because Sonny Woods is high on it, is the Cesar Martinez fight. I think that has to happen for that division. I think that's a fantastic Bull versus Matador type of fight. Obviously, you're getting the Charlo Castaño rematch again. I'm thinking fights that just merge divisions together, unify everything, so therefore it becomes undisputed. That's one. I'd love to see Valdez Stevenson. Mm-hmm. I just think that works on so many levels. I genuinely think that Shakur Stevenson this year could be the guy. I think at the end of the year, we could be looking at him going, he's actually the dude. All these guys that we were talking about at lightweight, previous to who's going to take over Floyd thing, actually, it's this little fella. I think it could be Shakur Stevenson. And hopefully, mate, if everything works out by the back end of the year, the little guys go at it again. I'd love to see Inoue versus Donaire too. But hopefully, on the road to that, someone somewhere's fought Casemiro, you know, and it's kind of all just worked out that all the belts are on the line for that particular fight as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. From a UFC point, sorry to keep whittering on. I know you want to chat as well, mate. But we're already, again, when the UFC bring in an interim title, the immediate fight after that is always merging it with the champion, always. And that's what we're getting with this heavyweight fight. So you got Cyril Gane, who became interim champion in kind of BS circumstances a little bit. But then obviously Francis is the main guy. Those belts don't stick around. We don't just keep belts for the sake of belts, get them together, and then we get an undisputed champion. So we're getting that in January. Then the month after, again, on my dream list of last year, I would have said Adesanya versus Whittaker was the fight to make in the middleweight division. There's no doubt about that. And for me, this is what fight sports is supposed to look like. And this is why I always argue with people about rematch clauses in boxing. I know that there can be financial benefits to fighters that are involved. And I'm sure Alexander Usyk loves his rematch clause, right, with Anthony Joshua. But for me, I just think it holds up the division. I think it holds up boxing. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you look at what has happened here, so these two guys fought 18 months ago, 2 years ago, right? Came together as champion and interim champion. Robert Whittaker was the long-term champion. Izzy was the interim champion. They fought. Izzy wins. He's the undisputed champion. And he won brilliantly. It was an absolute shutout on the night, and he did the business in front of all his fans down under. Now, what would normally happen there is, long reigning champion's got to have an immediate rematch. Well, why? Move the division on. There's some other contenders in there. Let's move this division on a little bit. Let's see where the champion's at. Let's see where Robert Whittaker's head's at. And what he's done, he's gone away. He beat the likes of Jared Cannonier. He beat Darren Till. He's beaten them all in fantastic fashion. And he's now got us, the fans, going, Whittaker's on fire, man. He's even better now than he was when he was the champ. He's got to get back in there. We need to see the rematch again. So now the fans have demanded that rematch, and we've got it. So there's more excitement now about the rematch rather than just doing it immediately, because he looked absolutely dead on his feet the first time round. Now there's real enthusiasm of people thinking, Whittaker might be able to take Adesanya out, man. So that, for me, that fight was always on the dream fight. You've got, what else have I got here? John Jones has got to fight this year, and he's got to fight whoever is the heavyweight champion. That's got to happen this year. We were expecting it last year. It didn't materialize. Obviously, John was just being John, man. And there's been obviously, he's had a legal situation going on in the States, which is just seeing that he's going to miss jail time now. So therefore, there's an opportunity for him to actually get back to competition. And I think athletes like John need competition in order to keep himself at a ridiculous trouble that he gets himself in. We're already getting Masvidal Covington. That was a fight that was on my dream list. That's been made.
Bad blood in that one. I know that. I'm not a massive UFC fan, but I know there's some bad blood there.
Yeah, man. Massive bad blood. They used to be best mates, and now all of a sudden they just hate each other. And from a British point of view, I think Leon Edwards has got to get a world title shot against Kamaru Usman. I was speaking, again, this makes me sound like a bit of a knob, but I was speaking to Dana White the other day, and he insinuated that Usman will be back in May, June time, and his next opponent will be Leon Edwards. So that's great. From a British point of view, we've only ever had one UFC champion, Michael Bisping, and he reminds me every time we do our TV show together, mate.
That's him behind you, right there.
There he is. That was the defense of his title against Henderson there in Manchester. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, fingers crossed Leon Edwards gets himself a shot at a world title this year. And from a British point of view, mate, I think we're in a really good position. I think British mixed martial arts is having a little bit of a golden period right now. Hopefully we'll get a UFC London. Hopefully all those fighters will get on there and the British fans get to see him and fall in love with him, because that's when you do fall in love with him, don't you?
Yeah.
By paying for the ticket, go into the event, experiencing it firsthand and going, do you know something? That guy gave me an unbelievable night. I'm going to follow that guy, that girl on their career. And hopefully we get that this year.
Definitely. I want to just go back to what you said about Canelo and Beterbiev. Eddie Hearn said something. He wants to see Canelo do what he done at super middleweight, up at light heavyweight, and go for all the belts and become undisputed at 175. You've stood next to Canelo. He's roughly about our height, maybe even smaller than us. Can he go up at There's an old saying, every good big guy beats a good little guy. Can Canelo go up there and beat guys like Beterbiev and Joe Smith Jr. and all these guys, Bivol? Can he go up there and do that? Oh, Bivol's not even the champion.
You see, the only thing that is going to beat Canelo, right, is time. He's going to get old at some point, or he's going to give away too much of the advantage to the other person. All right, so he's gone in. I mean, this is a guy that will win in championships at 154 pounds, right? And he's moving through now. He's done it at 168. Can he do it at light heavy? Now, when I look around everybody that is champion at light heavy, I think he can beat them all. The Beterbiev one is the thing that absolutely jumps off the page, because that dude's a lunatic, absolute lunatic, right? He's talented skill-wise, but he just seems immovable, absolutely immovable. And when you do give him a bit, for example, Callum Johnson gave him a little bit, it makes him worse. He's like, you're going to hit me back? Right, okay, then if you're going to hit me back, I'm just going to keep walking forward now then, man. We saw him recently with the massive cut on his head. The majority of fighters in that situation that don't know how to operate in that situation, he just went, oh shit, referee or the judges might call this off at this particular point. I'm going to get stuck in here now and I'm going to finish this fight. And he went about his business. Personally, you're right in what you're saying, right? A good big one will always beat a good little one. But we're talking about an elite little one, aren't we? We're talking about talking about a dude that ain't even from our planet, mate. Some of the stuff that this guy does. The argument for the Beterbiev thing is when Canelo fought Kovalev, and it's a Kovalev that was in a crazy place in his life and a crazy place of his career. There's an argument at that particular point that Kovalev's won a lot of rounds against Canelo. Whether he's winning the fight or not, I don't know, but he's winning a lot of rounds. And obviously Canelo spent a lot of time setting traps. The fight was getting away from him a little bit. He didn't seem to panic. He didn't seem to panic at all, mate. And then bosh, the fight was over. Beterbiev's younger, he's fresher, he hits a bit harder, I think, than that version of Kovalev rather than the original version of Kovalev. it's just an amazing. I mean, look at the conversation we're having now, man. The true answer to the answer is, I think he can beat every single one of them. The Beterbiev thing, I couldn't give you a definitive answer. I couldn't sit here and say, I'm going to bet on that and say Canelo's going to do it, because it's one of them that you just go, can he? And if he can, fucking hell, what have we witnessed? What are we living through?
Exactly.
Unbelievable.
But Charlo, though, doesn't it? It looks like he's getting the Charlo fight now, so.
Yeah, but again, the interesting thing for me is, what weight did they do that one at? Where, you know, what? It's a great fight, don't get me wrong. And I think Charlo needs it. I think there's always, for some reason, there's always that thing with Canelo going, oh, he ran away from Charlo. Did he? Where did he run to? He ran into higher weight divisions, mate, taking on bigger hitters, a higher weight. And now he's talking about cruiserweight, like you say. So listen, if they make the fight, it's a good fight, but it's not one of those fights that I would say adds anything further to Canelo's current legacy. That's no disrespect to Charlo. I think he's a good fighter. But a Beterbiev, mate, just puts him on the Mount Rushmore of fighters, doesn't it? It's crackers.
That's the one I want to see, Beterbiev. You almost don't want to chuck somebody, because he's done everything the right way. It's almost like you're saying them. A lot of people think that Beterbiev is too big, too strong. He won't be able to put a dent in. But you did mention that Cam Johnson put him down, but that just seemed to make him piss him off a little bit. He just wanted to come forward, and
yeah,
like every time he does get hurt, it just annoys him a little bit more. So he just wants to get the fight out there and get home and have a cup of tea or whatever. But like I say, it's shaping up really nicely. But I just want to, who should we look out for in 2022 then? UFC as well, because a lot of people in the IFL TV might not watch a lot of UFC, but they might dip in when there's a big fight like the Conor McGregors and the Poiriers and all these guys. They might dip into it. So who should we look out for in the boxing game and the UFC game?
Boxing game, mate, all your fans will know about Keyshawn Davis, obviously. I think he's a fantastic talent. What is he now? 4-0 as a pro. He was listen, he lost out at the Olympics, but I think he's more suited to the professional game. I think he's going to have a good year. He's with a good promotion team, and I think they'll have him out regularly. So I think he'll catch everybody's imagination. I'm quite high on the lad from the Northeast in the UK, Mark Dickinson. I like him. I think he's got a bit of talent. He's obviously working with Ben Davison. That's a gym that's red hot, as you fairly well know. But I think Mark is going to. Mark, if he's not fighting for, I think he will be on the cusp of maybe challenging for the British title by the back end of the year. That's how quick I think they'll move him, because I don't think they're going to mess about with him, mate. So yeah, from a domestic point of view, I would go with him. I like the big heavyweight, Jared Anderson. I like him. I don't think he's going to be making movers and shakers amongst Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk anytime soon, but you know what I mean? They might match him up with someone and he might cause a little bit of a shock somewhere and everybody goes, woohoo, where did that come from? And then that might start the ball rolling for him. From a UFC point of view, I'm just going to stick to Brits, right? There's one British lad that you have to check out this year, and he's going to move fast, this kid. If they do UFC London in March, he'll be on this card. It'll be his UFC debut. He's only just signed to the UFC. And what he'll do, he'll probably fight 3-4 times this year. He's in a division that's so fluid, he could be top 10 ranked, maybe even higher than that by the end of the year. And I'd say that in 2023, he'll fight for a world title. And I'd even go as far as to say is that he'll be a world champion, this kid. He's a kid called Mohamed Mokayev. He's originally from Dagestan. Mm-hmm. He left Dagestan, seeks asylum. He ended up living in Wigan, just down the road from me. And he's just gone on this mad little journey of representing Team GB at IMAF games and various things like that. He's a back-to-back amateur world champion. He's ridiculously good. And I think he's 21, 22 years of age, mate. He's ridiculously good. Makes his UFC debut hopefully in March. So that's a kid that you should be looking out for in the UFC. Mohamed Mokayev. Listen,
like I said, I'm starting to get into the UFC a little bit, into that jiu-jitsu, that twisting necks and snapping arms and stuff like that. So I'm starting to enjoy that part of the game. Because like I said to you, when I spoke to you, I think it was maybe in Vegas with the Fury Wilder 3, I said to you, I couldn't really get into the UFC because I couldn't appreciate the ground game. I couldn't see what was going on.
Yeah.
Paul Rogan's there and he's telling you what's what, but I don't understand what a Kimura is or a rear naked choke and all these things when he's describing leg over this, hip there, leg there. But now I started to know, because I did do a little bit of training with a guy who was the 3-time world champion jiu-jitsu. He's a matchroom security guy in the US, and I appreciate it a lot more. So now I'm liking this. So when every time the UFC pops up, I'm like, Adam Catterall, what's he saying about it? Okay, there's one to watch. Do you know what I mean? So,
mate, I think a lot of fans are like that because of where we're obviously from the Western world. So we're used to seeing fist fights. We like guys that stand and bang a little bit. And especially if you're a boxing fan that came over to MMA, that's what you're used to. And when you do see grapple heavy fights, it can be a little tedious at the start, especially when you're thinking, come on, stand them up, let's have a proper scrap. But when you do see elite level jiu-jitsu, you can then start, after a period of time, like you've just said, you've trained it a little bit. So all right, I understand what this person's doing here. I understand what's happening in this particular thing. When you've seen it on repetition, week after week after week after week, you can then start to understand when you listen to the commentary team, right, I get it now. There's a bit more of an appreciation for it. It does take a little bit of time. I get that, man. I just, I would advise people, if that's people who are watching this that I've gone to the UFC. I like this. I like the fist fight stuff. I like the kicking stuff. But when they grapple, it's not for me. Stick with it. It does get better, I promise you.
Definitely. I agree. I'm testament to that. Talk about me making that switch from boxing to UFC. Let's just jump straight into it then. The big man himself, the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury. Francis Ngannou going at it. Tyson Fury, a boxing. I think it was Tyson Fury that said a boxing match for UFC gloves. You know what? I'm into it.
Mate, people love the circus, don't they? Love the circus.
What did you say to me before I pushed record?
Yes. When you want to talk about the circus, you hire the clown. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm on IFL today, baby.
Well, listen, it's definitely it's intriguing as well. It's a laugh, and you know what? With Tyson Fury, he always brings that fun, that laughter, that craziness. Ngannou seems a little bit more serious and stuff like that, and he seems adamant now with the UFC. I read that his UFC contract, he's not going to fight for less than $500,000 now, or fight for $500,000, and the only way you can get more money, really, and everyone knows it, is boxing is the sport. To get that 10-figure, a bit too much, but that 7-figure, 6-figure plus, do you know what I mean? 10-figure, that's billion, is it not? But you know what I mean? That's boxing is the sport. If you want to make your money, you want to in the fight, you come over to boxing. And I think, is it too far-fetched to say Tyson Fury and Ngannou? Will we see that? Can we see that?
Mate, I can see it. And the reason why I can see it is some of what you just touched upon there, right? If you want to make some dough, you go to the sport of boxing. And if you actually look worldwide on the pay-per-view purchases last year, and this is going to infuriate people. It infuriates me, but this is just the world that we're living in right now. The number one pay-per-view purchase last year was Jake Paul Ben Askren worldwide. I know, right? You've got Canelo Plant in there, which was a solid pay-per-view buy for an actual boxing event. But the third on the list is the other Paul brother against Mayweather when they had a little bit of a dance. That did over 1 million pay-per-view buys in the States. So there's a business model there, isn't there? Whether we like it, whether we don't like it, it ain't going anywhere because it's banking till for people. People are making some serious coin off it. Now, if you're actually good at this game, i.e. Tyson Fury, why are you sat there going, hang on, right? You're telling me you want me to go in with this Deontay Wilder fella, or you want me to go into this Alexander Usyk fella, or this Anthony Joshua fella, right? And you're going to pay me this, and this, right? I get that, yeah. But I could go and have a mess about with this fella, right? Just dance circles around him for God knows how long. And you're going to pay me how much? Yeah, I'm in for this, right? So you can understand it. You can understand the business element of it. From a fan's intrigue, it is intriguing. The main man in the UFC, with the small gloves, with the highlight reel knockouts, with the ferocious power, who they've tested at the UFC PI, then he hits you harder than a Ford Mustang traveling at 100 mile an hour or whatever the blooming test that they've thrown out on him as. You've got this guy in this corner, and you've got this champion of the world of boxing, who, with all due respect to Tyson, if you're watching this, mate, he's not body beautiful, is he? You know what I mean? But we all know that muscles don't win fights. The Gypsy King does. So, you know, it just works. Everything about it works. You've got this Adonis figure, knockout dude with a phenomenal story coming from Cameroon. The Gypsy King here, Tyson Fury. One talks the talk, the other one just knocks dudes out. People will be into it. I don't care what anybody says right now, people will be into it. The only thing is, right, let's be straight. I've no problem with Tyson Fury making a few quid. I've no problem with him having a little bit of a dance with Francis Ngannou. But it can't happen before he becomes undisputed champion. It can't. He hasn't cleaned up shop in this sport. And if he is the guy that I think he is, if he's the guy that I think he is, he cleans up shop first and foremost. If he cleans up shop, if he fights Usyk, becomes undisputed champion, I have no problem with him then going, where's the other challenge, lads? You know what I mean? I'm going to go make some coin over here. While you lot sort yourself out, yeah, I'm going to go make some coin over here. Sound. No problem then. but don't go off dancing before we get that big one in boxing, mate. We need the big one in boxing first.
I think, George, I'm a boxing purist. I'm a boxing fan at heart, and I would love to see an undisputed heavyweight champion. And I think with the way Tyson, if you watch his Instagram, the way he's talking, the way he's releasing these videos of Usyk, I think he does as well. I think he wants to become undisputed. I think he wants his crack at Usyk, and hopefully, like you said, we get to see that. Well, obviously, if Joshua beats him in the rematch, if that goes ahead, we might face Joshua. Who knows? But listen, if we get Joshua Usyk against Tyson Fury, I'm here for it.
Mate, that's the boxing is only as successful as its heavyweight division, isn't it? You know, and with all due respect to it, I absolutely love Lennox Lewis, love him to pieces. But for us to be sat here in 2022 and still be referring to Lennox Lewis as the last undisputed heavyweight champion, which was crowned in 1999, is a bit of a farce, mate. We need to get. I know that the Klitschko's were there and they wouldn't fight each other for a long period of time. They tied this division up for ages, but we need to get it on. We need to have an undisputed, one single, one song, main guy at heavyweight. And once we've got that, boxing will be booming, man. It'll be flying.
I agree. But I do want to stick on this. I want to get your thoughts on the Ngannou Tyson Fury fight with the 8-ounce gloves. Now, I was speaking to
Four ounce gloves. He wants to do it in the UFC gloves. Yeah, 4-ounce gloves.
4-ounce gloves. Sorry, my bad. I do know the 4-ounce gloves. I don't know why I said 8-ounce gloves. But yeah, I was thinking, like, obviously Tyson's used to the 10-ounce gloves with you can block a little bit. You've got a little bit more of a guard, and it's hard to get through. But these little 4-ounce gloves is just your hands. And then, like you said, Ngannou has that power and stuff like that. I'm intrigued by the concept of a boxing ring with 4-ounce gloves. Just what's your thoughts on that?
That is I suppose, in some way, shape, or form, it is a kind of leveler, isn't it? Let's be dead straight, right? And everybody knows I'm a massive UFC fan. Francis Ngannou, in a proper boxing match, doesn't beat any of the top 10 in the world of boxing. Just doesn't do that. I don't care how hard he is. They know how hard he is. I know how hard he is. So they're not going to get hit by him. They're going to stay out of the way. They're going to box his head off for 12 rounds. They're going to win on points or whatever. Or when he gets tired because of all that muscle, it'll gas at some point. They'll take him out. That is what will happen. But the 4-ounce thing, right? And the bravado of Tyson, because he has started putting himself at risk, hasn't he? You know, once upon a time, he just skate around the outside of the ring, pop, 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 pop. See you later, lads. Thank you very much. There's my money on my way. Now, all of a sudden, there's a bit of macho about him, isn't there? This thing, right, I'll go on then. I'll put myself at risk. Biggest puncher in boxing. Let's have a go, you know? And I'm sure that if they make a Dillian White fight, he'll put himself at risk and put himself in that situation because of the bravado of it. He would want to knock out Francis Ngannou. I think he would want. I don't think he'd want to skate around him. I think he would want to try and knock him out. And then by doing that, by putting yourself at risk, you leave yourself open to one of them monster uppercuts, especially in 4-ounce gloves, mate. Listen, I said before, we're all interested in the circus. You know, you're buying a ticket to go and see the bearded lady, aren't you? Or the 3-legged man. We're all doing it, mate. If Hugh Jackman's singing, I'm turning up, baby. That's what we're here for. And if they put that show on, we can slag it off as much as we want. We can all have a go at it as much as we want. We're going. Yeah, go on then. Can the dude from UFC land once on him? Can he do it? I would say no, but let's have a go.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, boxing in the fight game, it's becoming more of, you wouldn't say WWE sort of style, but it's becoming that in terms of, you mentioned the Paul brothers and all these YouTubers coming in, then you have TikTokers fighting. Paulie Malignaggi fought a TikToker. So you're getting that side of things now, and believe it or not, it's bringing in the money. It's bringing new eyes. It's bringing in, I was at that Jake Paul Woodley 1 fight in Ohio, in Cleveland, and it was like the stadium, the arena was packed from an hour before the first bell. Packed. There was no like 10 people in the arena to watch the undercard fights. It was, I think it was 14,000 in there from an hour before the bell until the final bell. It's bringing in this new audience that isn't a pure boxing fan or a pure UFC fan or a pure fight fan. So it's working. The model is working, like you said. So I can't see it going away in 2022. So it's possible that we can see Tyson and Ngannou.
Imagine if boxing looked at that model, and I'm sure they are doing. I know for a fact Eddie Hearn's looking at that model, and he's attempting to try and do that with what he's doing with Matchroom and that he's the zone stuff. Entertainment is key. Entertainment for people sat on the chairs at home watching this via television screens, and entertainment for people buying a ticket and being in the arena. You've got to give the full experience to the fan. They're the most important person in this game. give it to the fan. Boxing fans, of course, we want to be entertained. Of course, we want to feel like we're getting a bit of bang for our buck. But the easiest way of doing that is the matchups. Don't sell them crap fights. Simple as that. If you want people in the arena at 8 o'clock and you don't want them to leave till 11 o'clock, make sure the first fight, right, is as competitive. There's something on that fight as much as the main event.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do. The matchups have got to be absolutely bang on and keep the pace of the show going. And if you can keep that pace of the show going, you've got a chance of getting people in there, out the bar and into the seat to watch the event.
Definitely. And talking about keeping shows going and stuff, you kept that show going, that last Probellum show for me in Newcastle, because I was sitting right next to you when you were doing your commentary on that Probellum show, and like when a fighter was landing a big shot, you were out your seat jumping and yes, woo, hooping and hollering, and man, like when you think of that. I want to know what it's like to hear that from not sitting next to you, but listening from the TV set. I want to know what that's like. But how are you enjoying that sort of side of the game now? Being ringside, sitting there on the ring canvas, watching the fight and calling the fight. How are you enjoying that?
Yeah, mate, I'm enjoying it because I enjoy a new challenge. You know, you try, for example, you get into the game of interviewing people and you try and master that, and then you get to a certain level of that. And don't get me wrong, I want to keep on trying my very best to get better and better and better and better at that side of stuff. And then you move into hosting television shows and presenting television shows, radio shows, whatever it may be. You try and master that crap. But when an opportunity popped up, like with the Probellum guys, when they spoke to me about what they wanted to achieve from a commentary point of view, it just made the perfect amount of sense for me to have a go at it. Now, there's a lot of work to do. Don't get me wrong, mate. But I genuinely believe in what Probellum are attempting to do anyway. They share a lot of beliefs that I have regarding the amount of belts that are in this game, rematch clauses, all those types of things that I harp on about on all my podcasts every single week. They are on the same page as where I'm at. They're on the same page regarding matchmaking. But as I was just alluding to then, they're on the same page regarding the fan experience, because I personally believe the fan's the most important person. You've got to give them the experience in the arena, give them the experience at home as well. And that obviously is kind of partly my responsibility as well. Now, what you would class as calling fights, and what we want to try and achieve, and we will get there at some point with Paul and Nick alongside me, is you can watch any show, any boxing show, and there will be a commentator there calling play-by-play, right? For example, Mike Costello, the best in the game at calling play-by-play, right? As a person that consumes radio, you listen to Mike Costello call it, and you go, that's pretty good, man. That's pretty good, the way that he goes about doing his thing.
Powers,
so from my angle is, why would I want to go and try and be that guy? Why would I want to try and do what that guy's doing? Because he's the creme of the creme. This is with all due respect to all the other YouTube channels that do what you guys do, right? Because you guys were first. You guys have come along. You've done that. You've done the market, and everybody thinks, I can do that. Well, yes, you can do it, but can you do it as good as them? No is the answer, and you see it reflect.
Adam, I'm an idiot with a camera, man. They can do it way better than me.
Yeah, but I'm referring to the IFL brand being number one. You know what I mean? So you've got to have your unique selling point. You've got to have your point of difference. What's the point in trying to be like some other dude, man? Because you're not going to be able to cut through because the other person's already cornered that market. So the angle with the Probellum and the Probellum commentary team is, I want people at home to feel like they're kind of in the pub with me, right? That's what I want you to feel like. I want you to feel, my job is to get you closer to the show. You're a fight fan. If you're tuning into a Probellum show at this moment in time, you're already a fight fan. You're not stupid. You know exactly what you know what you're looking at. You know what you can see. There's no point in me teaching you to suck eggs and saying, that's a jab, that's a cross, that's this. No point, right? So the whole angle with the audio accompaniment to your viewing pleasure is to make you feel like you sat with some mates, right? Now, if you were sat at home with your mates and some dude gets wiped out, somebody's reacting in that living room, man. Somebody's losing their shit, right? And 9 times out of 10, that dude will probably be me. So that's just what's going to go down. So when someone gets ironed out, You're going to hear it through your speakers, and you're going to see some bald-headed dude at the side of the canvas going absolutely wild that some action's going on. The Mark McKeown fight, while we were out and about in Sunderland, mate, I couldn't sit down. I felt sorry for the dude sat behind me because that fight was just absolutely unreal.
Well, I was sat next to you. I was sat like on the steps on the ring post.
Yeah, I saw you.
Literally right there on my right-hand side. And every time you were jumping up and down, you would sit back down, you look at me and give me a wee smile as if to say, you were enjoying it, man. It was good. The passion that you have, man, it's definitely good to see. And I think it's what's needed, to be honest. I'm not blowing smoke up your arse, but it's definitely, I think, the passion that you give with Nick as well, because you've got Nick as your yin and yang. Next to the no-nonsense guy, he's the fuck him, fuck you, bullshit, that's crap, don't like that, hate that, love that. I like that. That's what Nick is. And Paul's obviously that guy who is the boxer and the pure boxer. He can read the fight and tell you what's going on. So the two of you together is some match made in heaven, I think.
The fans aren't thick, man. Fans aren't, and people kind of think that they are at times. They're not. They know what they're watching. They know the score. They know the crack. Paul I think he's brilliant at just giving you just enough education, just a little bit in there to add to the fun element of what we're trying to create regarding the broadcast, man. And I think if people are watching that at home, they watch it with a bit of a smile on their face, but they also watch it when Paul speaks. Oh shit, yeah, didn't see that coming. Right, I'll just keep an eye on that guy's feet because this is going to come in a minute, and then 9 times out of 10 something happens off the back of it. And hopefully, I completely appreciate sometimes it's not going to be for everybody, but I'd like to think that within in a year from now, mate, we'll be sat here and people will be going, Joseph, mate, I kind of like watching Probellum shows. It feels like I'm there. It feels like I'm just hanging out with my mates and watching some fights.
Well, it seems like it's going to be a big 2022 for boxing and Probellum, so it's going to be a big year for you in terms of what you do in your journalistic career. I mean, you're a busy man with the UFC, BT, and TalkSport, and now you've got the Probellum stuff and all that. So I hope you're prepared for a big 2022, mate.
Yeah, man. Listen, it took a long time to get here, bro. We worked our socks off to get to this position. It's like anybody says anything in life, right? It takes you ages to get there. It's even harder to stay there, innit? It's even harder to stay there. You got to work twice as hard to stay there. And I'm lucky enough that I grew up in an household where my mum and dad won't let me take the foot off the gas. All right, they don't live in my house anymore, but it's kind of been instilled in me all my life. So I won't take my foot off the gas until someone hooks me at some point and goes, we're going to put some young blood in here, sunshine. That bald head's shining off the TV screen a little bit too much.
Swap it for an old bald man. If they want Adam, listen, next time I'm going to do a double box for you, man. I'm going to get a background. I'm going to get some boxing memorabilia or something rather than do it in my kitchen. Normally you don't see me. I've got a random spot in my kitchen I just use when I do my Zoom calls, but you've called me out and put me in the box. So,
mate, in fact, are these? I thought these might be your boys. Are these? No, they're the Nita Diner's. I've got some Josh Taylor ones in here, so I should have put them up, shouldn't I? I've got some Josh Taylor ones in here somewhere.
A proper whiskey right there. I see it.
Yeah, I've got a proper whiskey. I've got a bit of Dustin Poirier's hot sauce there, mate. I've got a little Joyce St. Pierre up top.
There you go. Super fight.
One of the best fights of all. The super fight. Fantastic
Marvin
fight.
and Leonard. Is it?
There you go, mate. Yeah, it is. And then I've got the Nita Diner signed gloves. I've got them in there, but no, sometimes I swap them up with Josh Taylor's because he was a British fighter last year.
Don't brush over that little trophy-looking thing. What's that? Beside the gloves.
Oh.
Brush over that.
Right, there is a story behind this, man. No, there is a story. This is random because this is not boxing related whatsoever, right? This is the first ever major broadcast award that I ever got in 2007. So I used to do music radio before I moved into sports stuff and what have you. And before I did anything of any note, like Radio 1 or anything like that, I used to work on a local radio station in the northwest of England called Rock FM. And that year, they'd never won any national awards or anything like that since like the 90s. Muggins here comes along, gets crowned commercial radio presenter of the year 2007, sunshine. Bosh. So I put it there. I always put it there just to remind me of the journey, mate, where it started and where we're at right now.
Oh, see, you shouldn't have glossed over it. You were going around the whole thing there and you glossed over that little trophy. I've seen it. I can see it. Listen, you smashed it. Listen, you've been on IFL TV. I wanted to fight Disciples at some point in 2022. Speak to Nick. I know Nick's the boss. So speak to Nick. Give him
Mate, And we only do you in vision, sunshine.
Yeah.
People need to see the teeth and the smile, man. That's what they need to see.
I'll be centre box between you and Nick. No problem at all. Listen, Adam, enjoy the rest of your evening, man. Listen, I absolutely enjoyed talking to you and breaking down boxing, man.
Same, mate. Same.
Face to face, but listen, Zoom call's better than nothing. And I do appreciate your time. You know, I'm a fan of yours and the way you conduct yourself in the industry. So keep smashing it, mate. Thank you for your time and enjoy your Saturday evening.
Top man, Mr. McCART. Thank you so much for your time, mate.
Thank you, Adam, all the time. Thank you, mate. Cheers.